Hi guys, it's Jen. I am with the very amazing Alexandra Bracken.
I have a head cold. I'm sorry in advance.
It's okay. You don't sound like that. You'll be fine.
It's clear.
So we're going to try to go through these quick so we don't wear her out too badly. I've got questions from the Pages We Love community.
Yay!
So I'm going to kind of go through them and try to get through them quickly for you.
Okay.
Our first one comes from Catching Fire 77. He wants to know what your favorite scene to write in the Darkest Minds universe was.
Oh, favorite in the whole series. I feel like I have to go with the ending of the first book because that was one of those moments where sometimes as a writer you have a scene in your head and like you can't ever actually translate it to the page as well as you want it to. But for some reason, I never had to like rewrite the ending of that book. It always worked from the beginning, and I feel very proud of how like all of the emotions culminate in that moment, and it still catches people by surprise, which is delightful for me. So I have to go with that one, even though it's not like a particularly fun scene. But I did really love writing all the group scenes and the banter in The Darkest Legacy too.
Yeah, it's pretty good so far from what I've seen. Our second question comes from Darkest Heroes. She wants to know, why did you decide the Darkest Legacy needed to be from Zoo's perspective and not from Ruby's?
One of the reasons I wasn't 100% sure I would continue to write in the Darkest Minds universe, even though I knew I wanted to. This is like this tricky author thing where I think because I had worked on the series for like 4 or 5 years at that point, by the time the last book came out, I was like, I really need a break from Ruby's head. Like, I'm so proud of you, I love you, girl, but I don't want to be in your headspace anymore. I want to try something new. And so, but like, in my head, she and her arc were finished, and I really liked her arc overall, and I was like, I don't know that she needs to go through necessarily another big development. Like, that would feel satisfying for readers, and I kind of like the idea of coming at the world from someone else's point of view, and I thought Zoo would actually be a really interesting character to tell this story from her perspective, because the themes, which in large part are centered on the idea of how we use our voice and what we want to fight for. So obviously that ties in very well with her arc in the first trilogy. And then, I don't know, I just felt like she was, of all the main 4 characters, the OG Betty team, she, I feel like, got the least amount of page time, got the least amount of, I don't want to say the least amount of development, because I think... Who's calling?
It's Zoo!
Just wait a hot second.
I think it's done.
Perfect. Okay. Where was I?
Talking about Zoo and her development.
Oh, yes. So, I thought Zoo, you know, she has considerable development within that first original trilogy, but she doesn't have the same page time as the others. And even in Time, which is partly her story, it's really mostly Gabe's story, and Zoo features strongly in it and is sort of the person that helps him change and become a better person and realize his own character arc. So I was like, the time is now for Zoo to use her voice and for readers to get to know her better. And, you know, this book actually did not gel together until I knew until I figured out she had to be the one to tell the story, and then everything just like fit together perfectly, which was wonderful and rarely happens when I'm writing a book, and it reminded me a lot of when I was originally writing The Darkest Minds, so I knew I was on the right track.
That's awesome.
And then also I just love her, and I hope you guys love her too after you get to know her a little better and you see the changes. And actually this way you got to, I'm going on and on about this.
No,
I
it's
love
good.
Zoo so much. I'm like her #1 fangirl, obviously, but you get to see, you know, my other choice was to jump ahead 30 years, and then the original characters probably would not have featured much at all. So you still get the original cast in there, but you get to know Zoo better, and you get to meet her new friends, and it's wonderful. In my own humble opinion.
It's been really, really good.
Anyway,
I'm loving it.
The short answer to that question is because Zoo is awesome.
Yay, Zoo! Our third question comes from Amanda Uris. She wants to know, if you could go back to when you first started writing The Darkest Minds, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would change, and if so, what?
Yeah, I've talked about this before. There are a couple, like, sensitivity things that were just complete, like, privilege blind spots. And even the word blind spot is, like, a is an ableist language. So see, it's a constant evolution when it comes to writing and who we are as people. But I think, you know, there are certain things, like I did not make the connection that the word yellow can be a slur for Asian people.
Oh yeah, that's true. Huh?
So in the book, you meet other characters who are yellow, and you understand that that is not a racially charged term at all. But for instance, in the movie, they changed it to gold because they didn't want anyone to be like, she's a yellow on screen, which would have been horrible for poor Mia. So that, I did not realize the song Black Betty was racially charged either, and there's kind of a racist interpretation of that song. Because I had always heard that it was a marching song. Like, there are a bunch of different interpretations of the song Black Betty, but one of them is offensive enough that I shouldn't have gone down that dark road. And I also did not know that there is a whole trope about mute Asians in...
Really?
Yeah, in fiction.
I've never heard of that before.
I hadn't heard of that either, and so that's, you know, our privilege speaking, that hasn't been a part of our representation.
Yeah.
That there's been so little Asian representation on our screens that we have barely made that connection. I think it ties into the whole silent ninja thing, that stereotype. So that actually was another reason why I was like, you know what, it's time for Zoo's story, because Zoo did not get a chance to speak in those first 2 books, and she deserves it, and if I can make some slight amends for that decision.
Do it now.
Yeah, but like, it's hard, you know, and even knowing that, I'm like, well, Zoo doesn't speak for a reason. It's because that's how her trauma is manifesting, and everyone in that group has PTSD.
Right.
Intensely, like,
major
PTSD.
intense, yeah.
And it manifests in different ways, and that's her way of, you know, taking some control over her life when everything is so chaotic around her. So it's done with a reason, but, you know, it's still potentially harmful representation to some people. So those are the type of things I would go back and change. I would also make it clear that Clancy does not, I'm trying to figure out the right term for this. At the end of the Darkest Minds book in the film actually portrays accurately as far as Clancy goes. A lot of people think Clancy full-on sexually assaults her. It is technically an assault. He is kissing her against her will, but it doesn't go that far. And I think that was never clear, and I assume that people would know I would have actually explored that a little bit more, the aftermath of that, if that had been like a full attack. But it was still harrowing and still traumatic for her to go through. So, yeah, lots of little things like that. But on it, you know, it's not an excuse, but you have to learn as you write each book. And I'm proud to say, and I really hope that you guys will agree that I've learned a lot over the years, and my writing and representation has only improved. So,
yeah, it's amazing. It's gotten a lot better. Because I've seen the changes already with Zoo in
yeah.
the Darkest Legacy, and how it's grown and matured, and it's still the same Darkest Minds.
Thank you.
But I can see the differences
There's
too.
a little bit more nuance, I think.
So it's definitely good. Let's see. So Aaliyah Shunke, I'm saying that totally wrong. She wants to know which character was the hardest to develop when writing the Darkest Minds series.
Clancy, for sure.
Really?
So, which I think is just so perfect, because all of the other characters, or at least the original 4, they just sort of dropped into my head. Sort of, this is the opposite of what I just described. Like how Athena sprang out of Zeus's head fully formed. That's how I felt about all of those characters. I knew that Zoo had gotten lost at Disneyland at one point. I knew when Chubbs had lost his first tooth. Like, I knew a really incredible level of detail about these characters without having, you know, to sit down and write it all out. It was just like I knew them from the beginning and who they were and what their goals were going to be and what their weaknesses were. Then Clancy was just such a cipher, that whole series, and he was really difficult to write because he always had to be 3 steps ahead of everyone else. So he was a challenge. Yeah. But, yeah. Clancy.
Let's see. I think this one we could probably answer, but the Nerdy Ashley wants to know who's your favorite character to write. So let's say, like, out of all your books, maybe. So, of all my books, it's actually Prosper from The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Ready. I just find that kid so lovable and such a little doofus, and also just, like, he has such a self-deprecating and sarcastic sense of humor, and, like, he's just such a good kid. You just, like, let me adopt you away from these horrible people. But I, like, you know, I always say Liam is the one character where I know exactly what he's going to say in every single situation he's in. I never have to struggle to write Liam's dialogue. But I also really just like writing Chubbs, and I think Chubbs had a really interesting arc over the course of the series.
I like Chubbs.
I like writing them all. It's really hard to pick a favorite.
They're all your babies, right?
Yeah.
I love Restofer wants to know what your writing process is like. Now you've kind of talked about that a little bit while we've been talking about.
Yeah. So my writing process has actually really changed over the years. I used to be a lot more of a pantser, and I would sort of just know the major turning points, like the beginning, turning point 1, turning point 2, the ending. But now I'm like a ruthless plotter. And actually, I think I'm a better writer for it because it makes me feel more in control of the story, and I have a better handle on how the character arcs and all of that build and fit together. And I do not think I could have written The Darkest Legacy without plotting it down to the most minute detail, because there are so many different little reveals that had to be paced out and all of that. So my writing process is really, I spend a long time just developing the idea and brainstorming it. And then, you know, that can be weeks or months or sometimes even years until I feel excited about the main character. Then I figure out the main character's emotional arc, because I think that does not work. The character is not sympathetic to the reader, and the stakes feel really low. Something I've learned over the years, which should be obvious and maybe is obvious to all of you guys, is that when someone says raise the stakes of the story, they don't mean make it more life or death. They mean raise the stakes personally for the main character that the readers care about, and so you're invested and you feel that gut-wrenching sense of like, oh no, and they don't get what they want when something awful happens, when their fear manifests. So that's like one tip I have. So I always figure out the emotional arc and how they're going to change over the course of the books. I like big damn emotional arcs. And Zoo gets one in here in The Darkest Legacy, so that made me really happy. Yay. And then I go through and I figure out all the different beats, and now I have a whiteboard. I don't have to write at midnight anymore, midnight to 4 a.m. like I used to, right? When I lived in New York and had my day job. Now I keep normal human hours. Get to play with my dog and see other humans every once in a while. So it's great.
Let's see. Suckling Alice wants to know what you're currently working on.
You guys, I'm like freaking out because this is the longest time I've gone without writing anything and working on anything. I just knew I was on such a marathon deadline schedule. Basically, I've been on non-stop deadline for 1.5 years.
Wow.
So it got really bad towards the end because I was working on Prosper's sequel called The Last Life of Prince Alistair and The Darkest Legacy at the same time. So I would turn in one draft and get the other books like edits back, and then it was just like that constant rotation of then I would get Darkest Legacy, then I would get Prosper, then I get Darkest Legacy. So by the end of May, I was like, oh my god, I am so tired. Someone like carry me across the finish line on these books. But I ended up with 2 books I love, so that worked out. But I think it would kill me to do it again.
Right.
So I have Prosper 2 coming out, and I'm also working on. So I took a long break to go back to what I was saying before. Lost my train of thought.
You're good.
I took a long break, and then I'm gonna start working on a new YA series. I can't tell you anything about it.
It's exciting. Good. So I'm gonna wrap it up with a question.
Sorry, you're good.
I'll wrap it up with a question I always have to ask everybody.
Okay.
But it's kind of a weird one.
No, I love it.
It would be very weird. If you were a kitchen utensil, what would you be and why?
I would like to be, this is the most boring answer, I'd like to be a spoon. I'd just be helpful to everyone.
Aww.
No, let's see. Let me think of a better answer. A whisk, so I can stir things up.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that one a
Make
lot.
things fluffy and exciting. Add some texture to life.
I like that a lot. That's awesome.
I love that. What a funny question. Yeah. Now I'm gonna spend the rest of
thinking about it.
The night, like we'll be at the event, and I'm gonna be like, oh, what if it was actually a spatula?
Caitlin's gonna be like, what? That's not what I asked you. So guys, be sure to check out The Darkest Legacy, which you can get now, and The Darkest Minds in theaters, because it's amazing. It's incredible.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for letting us interview you. This has been amazing.
My pleasure.
Bye bye. Hey everyone, I just wanted to add this little bit at the end. So this interview was incredible. It was absolutely amazing. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. The irony of this interview, and the reason I'm adding this little bit extra here, is because the day that I filmed this was on a Sunday. It was August 5th. The very next day, on August 6th, we had the Holy Fire. I live in Southern California,
and I came home to our neighborhood being covered in shrouds of smoke. I'll insert some images. So we had to very quickly start packing up everything that we could possibly pack up, because on that very first day we knew things weren't looking very good for us, and there was a very big possibility that we were probably going to have to evacuate, which we did end up having to do, but that's a whole other story for a whole other day. So I had to very quickly decide, what do I take and what don't I take? And that's a very hard decision to make. As you can see, I've got all my lovely books here, and there's so much that means everything to me. But in the end of it, I narrowed it down to 5 books, which is, I still don't know how I did that. And I was quickly thinking, oh my gosh, I never got to edit my Alexandra Bracken interview, which is a little funny to think about when you're facing possibly losing your home and others' homes, and it's a very terrifying experience. But for some reason, that clicked in my mind, and it was so important to me to make sure I got this interview to you guys, because it was so much fun to do, and I really wanted you to see it. So I was trying to figure out how to protect the interview. I didn't have time, obviously, to upload it to my computer, and the other issue was I wasn't taking my computer with me, so if that burned down, we'd be out of luck. So what I did was I took out the memory card in my camera, wrapped it in a little ESD, one of those little silver bags, those ESD bags, folded it really nicely, stuck it in my wallet, and it went everywhere with me. So for the week that we were on this crazy fire adventure, this Alexandra Bracken interview was with me through evacuations, through crazy firestorms. I mean, it was intense. But I was going to do everything in my power to make sure that you guys got this interview. So I really, really hope that you love it. I am so thankful that everybody is okay, that our neighborhood survived, that our house survived. Obviously, my books are still here, which makes me very, very happy. Everything turned out well, and now you're getting to see this interview. So that's my little exit story video. I really do hope you had fun, and I can't wait to see you guys again soon. Bye!